Alabama football fans, what's going on? It's Kyle Henderson and Andrew Bone coming to you Tuesday night. You know what we do every Tuesday night? We talk recruiting with Andrew Bone. Bone, what's up, man? Good to have you in the house once again on Tuesday to kick off a new month.
That's right. Happy September to you, Kyle. It's obviously another week. We'll see what happens this week if Alabama is able to get any more commitments on board. As obviously they picked up a big commitment over the weekend in Tim Keenan, big defensive tackle from Birmingham. Obviously, Alabama's had a lot of success with Birmingham area defensive tackles over the course of the last several years, and this is another guy that they feel like can come in and make an impact.
All right, so Alabama right now currently ranked number 1 in the Rivals.com recruiting rankings. Bone, kind of why everybody gets checked in, why everybody gets settled in. What's up, Bobby, Daniel? We see you in the comment box. Thank you very much for joining us early. Lindsay, what's up? Roll Tide to you as well. Talk about this class from an overall perspective. I mean, 20 commitments in the house, number 1 in the Rivals.com recruiting rankings. Ohio State, number 2, Florida, number 3, Oregon, number 4. Talk about Alabama's class and, what they need to do to hang on to this number 1 recruiting class as they head down the stretch.
Well, in my opinion, it wouldn't matter if Alabama was number 1 or if they're number 5. If as long as they're hitting their key needs, landing big time targets, and I think everything will work out just fine. But obviously, Alabama is currently sitting with the number 1 recruiting class in the country, and Alabama and Ohio State have flip flopped a few times over the course of the last couple weeks here. But Alabama certainly has a outstanding class on the offensive side and the defensive side of the ball so far. Still some key key targets that are still out there. I don't think we've been talking about this for the last probably 5 or 6 months that Alabama probably going to sign around 27 guys in this recruiting class. I actually am starting to think that's not going to be the case. I think the number is actually going to be lower. I think we could see 25, maybe 26 in this class overall. So not a lot of spots left. Just 1 or 2, or excuse me, 5 or 6 spots remaining in this recruiting class. So, it's going to be very interesting. There's going to be some tough decisions that are going to have to be made in terms of, if Alabama's going to be able to take somebody down the road or not. But obviously, we are going to discuss, several of the key targets this evening.
We got a big super chat coming in from Randall Williams. Thank you so much, Randall. You certainly one of the key contributors here on BamaInsider.com. So thank you very much. He's asking, haven't seen too many predictions for Alabama as of late. Is Alabama, maybe missing on some guys? Kind of talk about some predictions as we go forward. We'll certainly take care of him with the super chat. Thank you so much. And remember, all super chats tonight go to Andrew Bone. So definitely, you like the recruiting coverage, hook him up tonight. And Randall Williams on leadoff. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Bone.
Yeah, thanks, Randall. That definitely means a lot. We appreciate it, and definitely appreciate you being on the show. With Alabama, I mean, I don't think you can complain too much because Alabama sits with the number 1 recruiting class in the country. They're continuing to hit on several key targets. Now, there's a lot of guys who are out there that they're still heavily recruiting, and I think we have put in some predictions on some kids, that Alabama has recruited for a long time that, probably going to end up going elsewhere. But there's still just, so many targets that are still in the fold. And like I said, not a lot of spots left, only about 5 or 6 spots remaining in this recruiting class. So, if Alabama can get, 5 or 6 really good players, they're going to be pretty happy. And, I think overall this class is outstanding. I mean, they have 20 commitments right now. Most Alabama fans weren't even dreaming of 20 commitments 3 months ago, in 1st of September, because, many people, including myself, really weren't sure which direction this class was going to go. Now, I felt a little bit more calm about it just because I felt like, most of Alabama's key targets had yet to make a decision. And, now a lot of those guys have, and a lot of them have committed to Alabama. So there's just not a lot of key targets that are remaining out there, but, still some guys, I still think Alabama's got a chance to, land some big fish down the road.
All right. Thank you so much, Randall. We sincerely appreciate the super chat. All super chats tonight go to Bone. So definitely hook him up. If you don't know what a super chat is, it's a little $ icon. It basically works like a tip. So, Bone brings it every single night. So definitely take care of your boy tonight. Andrew Bone with the super chats. Thank you so much, Randall, for hitting lead off. Bone, Tim Keenan now on board. Big boy, 6'2", 325 pounds. I probably think he's bigger than that. We talked about that last time during his commitment. Kind of give viewers who are just joining us tonight just a real skinny on what Alabama is getting on a key defensive tackle to this class.
Well, he's he's a big kid. Kind of what I like to call an immovable object. I mean, he's kind of a wide load, but he's very athletic. He's a guy that's been going to camps since his freshman year. Has been getting better just about every single year. I think probably needs to lose just a little bit of weight, but I can see him kind of filling out like a DJ Dell type role once he gets to Alabama. I mean, kind of almost a little bit like Josh Chapman. Josh Chapman was about six, I think he was around 6'1", about 330 pounds at Alabama, and he was just a force in the middle. I remember Chapman though had to put on that weight. He was only about 295 pounds before he got to Alabama. And Keenan, I think he's got to lose a little bit of weight, but he should be just fine. He's a strong kid, a lot of power, a lot of strength, and definitely somebody that Alabama wanted to keep in state.
All right, a lot of questions coming in, so we'll get to your questions in just a minute. If you're new to our channel, please hit the subscription button. It's a little bell on the bottom of the screen that certainly helps our channel grow. You can also join to become a member of the Touchdown Club or the Loyalty Club. Just hit the join button at the bottom of this video. Plenty of ways to connect with BamaInsider.com. Bryce Young back at practice today, so definitely go check out our highlights from practice. You also got Ali Cajo, so two players from the offensive side, one player from the offensive side and the defensive side, both back at practice. Keynotes that you can get at BamaInsider.com right now. And be sure and hit that thumbs up button. I know you're like, the thumbs up button really doesn't matter. Yes, it matters. So hit that thumbs up button. Bone, we got a lot of questions coming in, so we'll just kind of jump right into it. The first one coming in from Daniel, and he's asking about Camar Wheaton. We've talked about this pretty much every single week, this particular prospect, the top running back in the nation. What's the latest, and kind of give Daniel the backstory on Camar Wheaton?
Yeah, Camar Wheaton currently rated as the #1 running back in the country according to Rivals.com. I think he's been that way since the very beginning. Put out a top 3 last week: Alabama, LSU, and Oklahoma. Now, I think everyone kind of assumes he's going to Oklahoma. I assume that. I think LSU, could potentially be a sleeper there because everybody just talked about Alabama and Oklahoma here lately with him. I just don't see him at Alabama. I don't see any running back in Alabama's class, to be honest with you. I think he's going to end up going somewhere else. He's stays pretty quiet, doesn't really do a lot of interviews, doesn't really talk to coaches that much. But I think in the end, he ends up, committing to Oklahoma, and it could happen sooner rather than later. I just don't see him committing to Alabama. And frankly, I don't see Alabama signing a running back this year.
Wow. I mean, is that surprising to you, Bone? I mean, it's probably been a while since Alabama hasn't signed a running back. I mean, because you're used to, running backs coming into this class. I mean, 3 last recruiting class, and I mean, so many guys throughout the years. Is that surprising to you, or is it just an anomaly that's going to happen just as one particular time?
Yeah, I mean, they usually like to sign a running back in each class. I mean, even, several years ago when they signed 4 running backs in one class, the class that featured, Derrick Henry and Kenyon Drake and Alti Tenpenny and Alvin Kamara. I mean, what an unbelievable running back class that was. And then the next year they ended up signing, Bo Scarborough. So, I think they always like to sign a running back, but this year I just don't see it happening. I think with the numbers being as tight as they are, obviously, Camar Wheaton would have a spot if he wants to commit, but I think if Camar Wheaton ends up going elsewhere, I think they'll just pass on a running back this year and move on next year. And like I said, or like you mentioned, Alabama signed 3 running backs in last year's recruiting class. I think they're very pleased with what they've seen so far in the limited amount of time that they've been able to work with those guys. I think they've been pretty happy. Now, I think if they weren't happy with 1 or 2 of those guys and not excited about their future, then I think that they would probably push harder for a running back in this class. But I think things are going pretty well so far with the running back group, and I think they can afford to miss on one this year. All
right, here's a team nugget for everybody, okay? Remember Roydell Williams, freshman, signed last class, had a phenomenal scrimmage. So more nuggets at BamaInsider.com. But here, Roydell Williams, certainly the 4th best running back on the team. So good news for Alabama freshman. By the way, Oklahoma charging $55 for that opener on pay-per-view. Did you see that? I was thinking Alabama fans should charge what? What could they charge to watch a scrimmage, right? I mean, I don't know. probably charge $100 and people be paying for that scrimmage, right? Okay, here we go. We got another question coming in from aside from Oots, who else could possibly commit sooner than later?
Cameron, that's a good question because, a lot of these guys, most of Alabama's top remaining targets on both sides of the football continue to say they're going to wait. They want to see if they can take visits at some point, which I don't know if that's going to happen. I really don't know if official visits are going to happen this recruiting cycle. I mean, obviously we saw, Georgia and Oklahoma have big recruiting weekends, last weekend. But in terms of, being able to officially have, kids on campus, I just don't know if that's going to be able to happen in this recruiting cycle because of COVID. But we'll have to wait and see. But most of the key targets that are out there, and I know that there's all these predictions who may commit next. We've talked about JaQuincy McKinstry potentially making a decision here pretty soon, but in my opinion, I think he ends up going to Auburn. That's really the only in-state guy that was really remaining out there for Alabama in this class. I mean, Xavian Sorey plans on waiting. Tyreak Arnold plans on waiting. A lot of these defensive end targets that Alabama is still heavily going after, all plan on waiting. One guy I continue to kind of keep an eye on because you just never know what may happen with him is Tuimoloau, the 5-star defensive end who just recently decommitted from Ohio State. Now, he did say recently that he was going to wait until signing day, but we just don't know. You just never know with him. He could potentially make a decision, sooner rather than later. So we're always keeping an eye on him, and always keeping an eye on, potentially a junior who could commit next. Alabama has 2 kids in the 2022 recruiting class who have already made decisions. So you never know if a junior may pop. The juniors are kind of a little bit more sporadic because none of them really ever set any commitment dates. They just all of a sudden, make an early decision. So we'll keep an eye on several guys, but really outside of Robbie Oots, who I believe will commit at some point this month. Now, I don't think Robbie Oots is a guarantee. Alabama, Virginia Tech, top 2 for him. I think everybody in the country just assumes when Alabama's going up against Virginia Tech, Alabama's going to win that recruiting battle, especially if they really want him and really pushing for him. But he's visited Virginia Tech a lot more than Alabama. They only visited Alabama one time, and it was earlier this summer when he really couldn't, interact with the coaching staff, spend some time with a couple of the players on the team. But, we'll have to wait and see. I still predict him in this class. Don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't say it's a 100% guarantee just yet.
All right. Jeremiah is asking, who are some other DB targets if Alabama miss on JaQuincy, Tyreak Arnold?
Yeah.
And Tyreak Arnold. So if Alabama misses on both of those guys, sorry.
Yeah, obviously those 2 guys are big time targets for Alabama, and JaQuincy could decide soon. Tyrian's probably going to wait, a little bit longer. I think he's going to probably wait until closer to signing day. Just so many schools, heavily coming after him. He put out a top 11 the other day. I really do think it comes down to Alabama, Florida, and Georgia. Maybe Florida State for him when he, ultimately makes that decision. But, with him being such a priority recruit for several schools, looks like he's going to wait a while. In terms of other defensive back targets, not a lot of guys that are still out there. Sage Ryan out of Louisiana, and I think he's probably going to LSU, but certainly has continued to talk to Alabama on a weekly basis, multiple times a week. So it's probably an Alabama LSU battle for him. Still probably lean LSU, like I said. Jordan Gilbert. That's another guy out of Louisiana that Alabama is extremely high on, rated as a 3-star recruit, but Alabama's been high on him for a very long time, offered him at junior day earlier this year. And really ever since then they've continued to really, heavily pursue him. So that's, somebody else to keep an eye on. Remember, Alabama has 4 defensive back commitments. And we said, for a while that Alabama, could take 6. Now, they're only going to take 6 if they get, 6 guys they really want. So they've got 4. So if they can get 2 of these other guys that they really want, they'll take them. But, could end up with just 5. And I think if they get 5, they get one of those guys. They get, Tyreak Arnold, Jordan Gilbert, Sage Ryan, JaQuincy McKinstry. They'll be very happy if they can get one of those guys on board and potentially 2. So we'll have to wait and see. But those are kind of the main guys. Camar Lassiter out of American Christian. He's another guy that, potentially Alabama could really press for him. I mean, he received an offer from Alabama last summer, and he's a local kid and having off to a really good start to his senior season. Alabama just hasn't done the full court press just yet. The four guys that we just mentioned, all those guys are getting the full court press. Kamar is definitely getting some interest from Alabama and some attention, but as of right now, I think he'll probably go elsewhere just because he's been heavily recruited by other schools a little bit more than Alabama.
All right, good stuff, Bone. We got another question coming in. This one is from Jeremiah once again. Remember last time we had like 4 or 5 questions come in from one guy. It was awesome. If it's a good question, I'm going to post it. Who could be that 4th wide receiver? You got some dynamic wide receivers in this class. I'm sure, as they look to the quarterbacks at Alabama's roster, they definitely want to jump on board. Who's going to be that 4th guy, Bone? Is there going to be a 4th guy?
Well, I think there's going to be a 4th guy. Obviously Alabama has 3, outstanding wide receiver commitments right now. Still looking for that 4th. Brian Thomas remains a priority target, and certainly somebody that I feel like has a great chance to end up in Alabama's class. I think it's certainly going to come down to Alabama and LSU. Of course, I do think it kind of fluctuates, just about every single week. Alabama leaves this week, LSU leaves the next, and back to Alabama and back and forth. So it's going to be, you look at that right now, it's 56% to LSU. So it's certainly a very tight recruiting battle for him at this time. Destin Payson, another wide receiver out of Louisiana, who's continues to receive a lot of interest from the Crimson Tide. Many people thought he was going to commit several months ago to Florida State. Decided to hold off, and we continue to hear the reason for him delaying his commitment was because of Alabama, because of their interest in him and their communication. So that's definitely somebody to certainly keep an eye on. If Brian Thomas ends up going to LSU, so watch out for Destin Payson. In terms of anybody else, I mean, those are really the only 2 guys at this time. I know we've mentioned Xavier Worthy. Committed to Michigan, about a month and a half ago. But some people have kind of thrown out there that maybe Alabama steals him in the end. I've heard the communication has kind of, almost come to a halt completely, and not because Alabama, but just because Worthy is, very solid with his commitment to Michigan. So, unless anything major happens, I see him sticking with Michigan. So I would keep an eye on Brian Thomas, Destin Payson. Now, if Alabama doesn't get one of those guys, maybe Kadarius Callaway, decides to move over to the wide receiver spot. And he's about 6 feet tall, 6'1", 210 pounds. Had almost 1,000 yards receiving during his junior season. So he's a very, very talented athlete. But in my opinion, I think Alabama will certainly stick him on the defensive side of the ball. But if they're if they just decide they want to have to have another wide receiver, that could potentially be an option. And I'm not saying that's been, thrown out there at all or discussed with him. That's just, me thinking about it right off the top of my head here.
All right. Jay, he's fired up. He wants another commitment this week. What are the chances of a commitment this week? I mean, are we going to be on commitment alert at some time in the first week of September?
Well, I mean, I certainly believe that, with Robbie Oots, telling us, here recently that, he was likely going to make a decision sometime in September. That's certainly somebody to keep an eye on, in terms of when he's going to announce that decision. We don't know. Could he, just come out and say, oh, I'm committed to Alabama, or will he set a commitment date? We just don't know. We're continuing to kind of keep tabs on him, continuing to communicate with him. So as soon as we know something, everyone else will know. But he's really the only guy that I'm really keeping an eye on in terms of a potential commitment to Alabama sometime soon.
Okay. All right. Khristian Zachary wants some. Cameron's asking for if there's a new update.
Not yet. I know a lot of people have been wondering about him since we started talking about him about a month ago on Bama Insider and on our show. Alabama certainly remains very interested in terms of being, is he going to be that guy that they really turn the heat up on? Maybe after a game or two during his senior season, very possibly. I mean, he is a kid who had 20 sacks during his during his sophomore season. Missed most of his junior season, so a lot of eyes are going to be on him. He could certainly get some more attention from other schools that he had not been hearing from. I think as of right now, he's planning on committing in October. But you never know. That may get pushed back if he starts getting a lot more attention once his senior season gets going. But Alabama remains very, very interested in him. We'll just have to kind of wait a little bit longer to see if they make that big push. But I think it could very well happen.
All right. Got a super chat in from Mr. Tony Hill. Thank you so much. One of our key contributors as well, along with Mr. Randall Williams. So thank you so much, Randall. Thank you so much, Tony. No question asked. Bone answered all of them I could ask, but just wanted to show my appreciation. Thanks to both of you for all you do. Absolutely. I mean, this is what we do. This is our line of work. I mean, Bone absolutely brings it every single day. This is coverage you don't have to wait to get every single Tuesday. You can come to BamaInsider.com every single day. I mean, I don't know how many hours Bone sleeps. I don't know how many hours I sleep, but we'll definitely take care of you. And certainly all super chats go to Bone. So, Bone, why don't you give him a good shout out there?
Yeah, Tony, that means a lot. Really appreciate it. You didn't even have to answer a question from you, but if you have anything, please feel free to shoot it, and that means a lot. So thank you very much for that. That definitely goes a long way.
Okay, we got one in coming in from Samuel. Hey, Bone. Hey, Kyle. Hope you're doing great. Are we going to make sure that Emmanuel Henderson is a priority? Shemar Turner, Kamari Lassiter. You already talked about Lassiter. Where do we stand with them? So maybe Shemar Turner and then Emmanuel Henderson.
Yeah, with Shemar Turner, Alabama remains, very much interested. I mean, I shouldn't say very much interested. Obviously, we know that, but very high on his list is what I've meant to say. Very high on his list. Alabama in his top 5. Many people think Alabama's in the lead. I think Alabama's got a great chance to land him. Certainly a priority target. I'm very interested to kind of see how long he decides to hold out from making a decision. I know he wants to wait. Try to take some visits. To some schools that he hasn't seen before, like Georgia and LSU. He's visited Alabama, Texas, and Texas A&M. So it all kind of depends on who ends up potentially committing to Alabama between now and when Turner, decides to commit, and if that will affect his decision. So let's say Alabama has a commitment from Monkel Goodwine and potentially has a commitment from Tuimoloau Adelie. Does that entice Shemar Turner to go elsewhere? We just don't know. It's something that we're going to continue to watch, but remains very high on Alabama. Alabama considers him a top priority, and they really want him in this class. As far as Emmanuel Henderson goes, the thing about these juniors, and it's really tough for juniors this year because Alabama and all these schools across the country didn't get to evaluate these kids during the spring. They didn't get to bring them on campus during the summer and evaluate them even more. Alabama did have Emmanuel Henderson in Tuscaloosa for Junior Day earlier this year. He's got all these offers, but I think a lot of people are still, wanting to see him a little bit more. They want to watch him. They want to see him in person. So I think as of right now, I wouldn't say he's a top priority, but he's certainly a guy that Alabama likes a lot, and probably trying to figure out, is he a running back? Is he a receiver? Because he can pretty much do it all, and he's certainly one of the best players in the state for next year.
All right, good stuff. We actually got another super chat coming in, so thank you so much, Hunter. Hey, we see you. Thank you so much. We sincerely appreciate it. All super chats go to Andrew Bone tonight. They're basically like tips. So thank you so much. Andrew does such a great job for us here at BamaInsider.com. Asking for an update on Xavian Sorey.
Yeah, thank you, Hunter. Appreciate that. With the Sorey, it's kind of the same deal. He wants to wait all the way, almost until signing day. I do think it comes down to a top 2, top 3 with Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. I think he's going to end up choosing one of those 3 schools. There's a lot of talk about Georgia because he visited Georgia a couple of weekends ago. And, I think he's high on Georgia. I think he really likes their coaching staff and has got a great relationship with them. But I also feel like he's got a great relationship with Alabama. And, luckily for him, for Alabama, he visited Tuscaloosa earlier this year for Junior Day. He's got a great relationship with Sal Sinceri and Charles Huff, who's now his lead recruiter. Since Sorey's transferred to IMG Academy. So he's got 2 guys who heavily recruiting him who are doing who are 2 of the best recruiters in the country. So I certainly wouldn't rule out Alabama at all there. And he also has 2 players on his team at IMG Academy who were committed to Alabama, and J.C. Latham and Ja'Cory Brooks. Did a great interview with J.C. Latham last week and talked to him about it. And he pretty much said, he felt like Alabama was in Sorey's top 2, and he's recruiting him and trying to get him on board. So I just don't think we're going to see anything happen anytime soon. I think it's going to be, kind of a signing day decision for him. Um, where he might be leaning today may not even be in his top, 2 or 3 in 3 months. So you just have to kind of be patient and let's see how this plays out.
All right, good stuff. And thank you very much, Hunter. We sincerely appreciate the super chat. All right, Cameron. What's up, Cameron? Always asking some great questions. Any news on Tyreak Sapp? And well, kind of give the backstory to Sapp. Very intriguing prospect. So Tyreak Sapp.
Yeah, Tyreak Sapp is a one of the top overall players in the country. I think he's in the top 22, 23 players in the Rivals 100. Out of St. Thomas Aquinas down in Fort Lauderdale. Has been committed to Florida for a while, but recently, I'd say recently, about a month or two ago, put out his top 5. You normally don't see recruits put out a top 5 or a top 3 when they're committed somewhere. So he's certainly somebody that is interested in other programs, is continuing to talk to other programs, and wants to visit other schools. But as we all know, visits aren't happening right now, so it's pretty hard to get to other places, especially when you're down in Fort Lauderdale. So I think he really wants to try to visit Alabama, wants to visit Ohio State. Until he visits those places, I just don't see him flipping. And I know Alabama's had some kids in this class that have flipped to him without visiting. But with Tyreak Sapp, I do think with Florida having a great year right now in terms of their recruiting class, and him being committed to Florida for so long, I think it's going to be tough to flip him. But Alabama, Ohio State will certainly have a chance if they can get him on campus.
All right. We have Jay asking about JaQuincy. Is it almost a done deal that Alabama isn't going to get Kool-Aid? Kind of what's the latest there? And is it, is he for sure headed to Auburn?
I wouldn't say it's a done deal by any means. Obviously Alabama is still, heavily pursuing him, continuing to talk to him, and they certainly want him as a part of this recruiting class. But just from talking to different people, close to Kool-Aid, just different people from all sides, it seems like Auburn is in the driver's seat. And I think, Bruce Pearl really pushing hard for him, from a basketball perspective. He won't be on basketball scholarship. He'll be on football scholarship. But, Bruce Pearl has really taken an active role in recruiting him for Auburn. And that's not to say that Nate Oates hasn't recruited him as well. And, Nate Oates has. But at the same time, he's not a top priority basketball recruit for Alabama. And, in the grand scheme of things, he's probably not a top basketball recruit for Auburn either. But Bruce Pearl is, recruiting him and wanting him to be a part, of their program. I think that it's going to make an impact in his decision. That's why we think that Auburn's got the best chance in landing him at this time.
All right, we got one coming in from Daniel. He's asking, with Jager Burton committing to Kentucky, does that mean that Alabama pushes harder for Amarius Mims?
Well, with Burton, I don't think he really had a choice there in terms of with Alabama. Alabama wasn't going to take a commitment from him at that time, so Alabama was waiting to kind of see what happens with Amarius Mims, waiting to see what happens. William Griffin Parker is announcing this week, which we believe he's going to end up going to Tennessee. But if he wanted to commit to Alabama, Alabama would have taken a commitment from him. But after that, it's pretty much a wait and see with Amarius Mims in terms of any other offensive line prospects. There's a lot of guys that are still out there that they're interested in, but I also think this is an interesting year where they may not take another offensive lineman. If Mims ends up going to Georgia or Tennessee, and William Griffin Parker ends up going to Tennessee, Alabama may decide not to take another lineman because, like I said earlier, there's not a lot of spots left. Just about 5 or 6 spots remaining in this class. They have 4 offensive line commitments. Still a lot of guys that are out there on the defensive line, defensive backfield. Still trying to get another wide receiver and a tight end. They don't necessarily have to take another offensive lineman. I think they've kind of filled their needs already. I think adding another offensive lineman is just going to be a luxury.
All right, we got all right, Zach. He's coming to us from Canada, friendly neighbor to the north. What's up, Zach? Andrew, where did you get all those pictures in your room? It's a question that we get every once in a while. Bone has obviously a great setup. Bone, help Zach out. Just kind of point to a couple of those photos. Where'd you get them from?
Well, I've gotten the dynasty one from the Tuscaloosa News. I think I was able to pick that up from the Tuscaloosa News when I wrote for the newspaper for several years. I think some of these other ones I really can't remember. I know the Daniel Moore over here. I think that was actually given to us. I think it was given to my father from Daniel Moore. Actually, my father sold Daniel Moore's house several years ago, so we ended up getting a lot of. They did a lot of the Daniel Moore prints in a charity auction. So I think Dad ended up getting some of his prints. So we were able to hold on to a few. We got some more, throughout the somewhere throughout the house, but I need to update the room a little bit. I know, I think a lot of these are kind of old school. Of course, I've got the Roman Harper hit right here. Oh, excuse me, I'm pointing the wrong way. I can't even point the right way. Sorry, right there from the Tennessee game in 2005. That was I think the best year Alabama had while I was in college, 10-2 years. So it was a rough go at it during my college years in Tuscaloosa. But I think that was the best season that we had while I was there.
All right, good stuff. Okay, as we continue to cruise down, I think we got a new super chat. What's up, Nathan? Thank you so much. Bone, give Nathan a shout out.
Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate that, man. Didn't even ask the question.
Did not even ask a question. Well, I'll ask one on Nathan's behalf. Bone, as we look to, prospects who are, certainly kind of standing out right now. I wanted to bring this into everybody's view. Let's see if we can get this. This is Deontae Lawson. And this is a prospect that certainly seems to be really on the rise, maybe a bit underrated. Talk about Deontae Lawson, what he brings to the table for this class of 2021.
Well, I certainly think he's one of the most underrated prospects in the country. I just don't see any reason why this kid's in the top 200. He should be in the top 100, if not higher. I think he's a top 3 player in the state of Alabama, and maybe even the best. I mean, he's having an unbelievable off to an unbelievable start for his senior season. I mean, he had 24 tackles in his first game, and it helped his team beat UMS Wright, which has not happened in a very long time. So, big shout out to him for that big win the other day. He's kind of an inside. I remember kind of early on, I kept mentioning he will play inside linebacker at Alabama, and everybody said no, he's an outside linebacker all the way. Well, been playing a lot of inside linebacker the other night. Now he moves around. Now he can play on the edge, play inside, but I think he's an inside linebacker. He reminds me. Last year I know we used this example last year of C.J. Mosley with DeMoy Kennedy, but this kid certainly reminds me of C.J. a lot as well, and I think he's got a chance to really be a special player at Alabama, and certainly somebody that I believe the national and regional guys really need to take a real hard look at and kind of determine that they need to move him up a lot higher. But at the same time, you can't fault him because it was where his initial ranking really was. They moved him up, significantly without even, moved him up about 40 spots in the last rankings update without seeing him and just kind of going off of, what we were saying. But I certainly think that with his senior season, he's got a chance to really move high in the rankings.
Right. And let's get you back on here. And Nathan is asking, he was like, thanks, man. You asked a better question than I could have. Hey, no doubt, Nathan, I got your back, man. Don't worry. I got, good people. So we'll take care of you. How about this one for you, Bone? This one's another one coming from me. When Alabama looks at this overall class, do you feel that they're that they're set on, where they need to be in terms of all positions? Is there one particular position to need? I know we talked about the quarterback, then Milroe jumped on board. So when you scan, the class of 2021, 20 commits in, where does Alabama need to go next to really make sure that this class is buttoned up in all areas?
Well, I certainly think that, on the offensive side of the ball, tight end. Alabama's got to get a tight end in this class. Now, they are going to have one in this class in a gray shirt in Caden Clark because he's going to be coming in January. But they're still trying to get one more guy. And, as we mentioned, Robbie Ouzts seems like the most likely candidate to be in Alabama's class. Ryan Hosterkamp, who is a commitment to Mizzou, continues to receive some love and attention from Alabama. It's if you watch his Twitter account, it almost seems like ever since that article came out about the interest in Alabama, that Mizzou's really kind of tried to button that up and make sure he sticks on board. So we'll see what happens there. But I do think Robbie Utes most likely candidate to be Alabama's tight end. On the defensive side of the ball, I still think defensive end is very important for Alabama. I think they really want to get 3 guys. 2 guys definitely, but 3 guys probably the max. Now they already have one. They have one really good one in Monkel Goodwhite. Now if they can get another guy like Shemar Turner, Tamise Adelier, if they could potentially pull off JT Tuimoloau, that would be huge. And the Alabama is certainly trying to add another outstanding player at that position, and also if they can get maybe one more corner in this class, I think they'll be very happy. Or one more defensive back overall, they'll be very happy.
All right. Taylor's asking, will Christian Leary become a 5-star? Will Deontae Lawson become the number 1 player in the state of Alabama? We just talked about Lawson, showed some highlights. I can't believe he had 24 tackles in that game. That's unbelievable. What about Christian Leary? I mean, talk about him and kind of where he's rated. I know he was recently updated in Rivals.
Yeah, he received a major rankings update in the last, in last week's update. Moved all the way. I think he was outside the Rivals 250 to all the way to number 44 overall. And I think if Mike Farrell gets a lot of hate because of the rankings sometimes, but honestly, he kind of oversees it. He lets the regional guys, he was number 43, not 44. He lets all the regional guys do the rankings. And Mike did an interesting story the other day talking about the guys that he feels like are 5-star recruits. And he mentioned, Christian Leary, mentioned Dallas Turner. Dallas Turner is not even in the Rivals 100 right now. So it's more of a regional thing, regional analysts, not pushing for him as hard, but, Mike thinking that Christian Leary's got a really good chance to move up to 5 stars in the next update. I mean, he's one of the fastest players, if not the fastest player in the country. Got a lot of speed, and certainly a guy who, could potentially move up to to the 5-star category, and somebody that Alabama feels like I'm not going to compare him to Jalen Waddle, but I think Alabama coaches feel like he can have a major impact like Jalen Waddle in terms of his receiving ability plus special teams.
All right, okay. Just like Sarah said, now is a great time to hit that thumbs up button, and like I always say, you don't have to wait every single Tuesday for this, recruiting updates. You can get it every single day. If you're wondering how to get 30 days free on BamaInsider.com, you know what's coming up. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Here's how to get free 30 days on BamaInsider.com. Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com. This is how to get free 30 days on BamaInsider.com. First thing you got to do, go to BamaInsider.com and click on the top banner. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to create an account, email, username, password. The second thing you're going to do is confirm your subscription. Make sure that the promo code is entered right here. It says promo successful, roll tide. The third thing you're going to do is enter your credit card information. It has to be valid, and don't worry, you're going to get that 30 days free. As you can see, once you've added a credit card, you're going to get the promo code. As you can see right here, it says $0. After that, you got to make sure and cancel within that 30 days if you don't want to be charged that $9.95. But hopefully, you're happy with all the coverage on BamaInsider.com, so you won't need to cancel. Once you're a premium subscriber of BamaInsider.com, you can access Andrew Bones' recruiting board. You can jump on the Talk of Champions message board and have a great time with thousands of Alabama Crimson Tide football fans. We hope to earn your business at BamaInsider.com. Right. So there you go. That's how to get free 30 days on BamaInsider.com. Thumbs up for Andrew Bone and his great recruiting content tonight. Does such a great job. Certainly delivering, all those nuggets that you certainly crave on the recruiting front. Bone, I mean, this particular recruiting class, 2021, I mean, if we rewind to when Drake May decommitted, I mean, people were freaking out, and you said, calm down, and look where we are. I mean, it's really amazing. Brandon's got a question coming in. Thank you so much for the super chat, Brandon. All tips tonight go to Andrew Bones. So thank you so much. You certainly keeping the big guy fed. Question outside of the recruiting, but do you guys think we'll be able to have a college football playoff without the Big Ten and Pac-12 playing? Bone, do you want to defer that to me?
I'll let you take it. Thank you for the $5, Brandon. I really appreciate that. But I'll let Kyle.
And I'll answer the top question.
$5.
All right. So, Bone, kick back. No, I certainly think so. And here's why. I mean, you got the SEC, you got the Big 12, and you got the ACC playing. Okay, so you shake out the teams. Let's say, two teams from the SEC are going to make the playoffs, at least in my opinion, anyways, right? Then you throw in one team from the ACC. Who's that going to be? Obviously, Clemson. There's always one team from the Big 12 that seems to sneak their way in. I don't think the Big 12 should be allowed in the college football playoffs for a couple of years just because Oklahoma hasn't had the best showing. That's just my opinion. I think there has to be some sort of a college football playoffs because of the kids, right? I mean, these guys, and for the coaches, these guys are all working so hard to get to that point. It looks like the Big Ten is going to try to somehow play some sort of college football, try to jump in October 1st. All the Big 12, all the Big Ten had to do was what? Wait. Why did they make that decision so early? They just had to wait it out. I certainly think they should have a college football playoff. And I certainly think that Bama's going to be there. I mean, with the offense that they have coming back, the continuity, they're dangerous, right? They got so much on that side. And I think the defense, from what I hear, here's a nugget for you, telling me that Alabama's defense is going to be the #1 defense in college football. We'll talk more team, though, on Wednesday night. So be sure and join us tomorrow. Another super chat coming in for the big guy. What's up? Wilbur, we see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wilbur. Appreciate that, man. Appreciate that.
Bone, you think there should be a playoff, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I certainly think so. I mean, I think, the teams that are, they're winning it every single year, they're all still playing. So I think there certainly should be a playoff.
All right. Thank you so much, Brandon. And thank you so much, Wilbur.
Thank you, guys. It means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. We got a great list of super chat members tonight. So thank you so much. It means a lot. They all go to Andrew Bone. So you know the great job that he does. We like to keep him fed. We like to make sure that he's taken care of because he provides the content that you need right here on BamaInsider.com and our YouTube channel. If you're out there and you're like, man, I'm not super chatting, just hit the thumbs up. That helps as well. Thumbs up and subscribing to our channel, because what it does is it sends our channel to other Alabama Crimson Tide football fans that might not know about our channel. So if you like our content, hit the thumbs up, and that gets to everyone that it needs to get to. I think we had something else coming in on Jacob's asking about Korey Forman. If Alabama can get Korey Forman on campus, does Alabama have a chance with him?
Well, Alabama's actually already had Korey Forman on campus, visited Alabama last summer. But I do think if Alabama is going to potentially land him, I think he will need to come back to Tuscaloosa. Now, he visited Georgia, I think it was last weekend, and, a lot of buzz about Georgia after his visit. Now, so it may just be, just getting to campus and seeing everything and visiting with, with players. And obviously, NCAA doesn't allow you to meet with the coaches right now, but as long as you can get them on campus, you're going to have a chance because, everything that Alabama has, going on right now down in Tuscaloosa with, all the new upgrades to the facilities, the sports science building and all that, good stuff, all the bells and whistles. I mean, I think, a lot of kids, when they finally get a chance to see it, are just going to be absolutely blown away. And, especially with the new strength staff. I mean, I think the new strength staff has just been, unbelievable so far, and has really helped out in the recruiting, in this recruiting cycle. So, yeah, if they can get them on campus, they're going to have a chance. But as of right now, I think Alabama's a long shot in his recruitment.
So we got another super chat coming in. What's up, Alex? Thank you so much. Yep. Alex is another key contributor to our YouTube channel. So, Bone, give him a shout out.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate that, man. all these super chats have been awesome. Means a lot to us. We love doing this every single week. We do it for free, every single week, and we love doing it. And now that you guys are, tipping, showing me some, I feel like I'm a bartender right now. So, so I really appreciate it.
You're serving the goods, man. I mean, you deserve everything that comes your way. I mean, Bone, kind of the backstory on Bone is Bone has been doing this for a long time. And when I took over Bama Insider, we knew that we had to make sure to keep Andrew Bone just because of the job that he does. I always talk about, when we talk about Alabama football, savages want to compete with savages. That's how I look at it as well. Like, I want to be the best that I can be, 5-star, because I feel that Andrew Bone's a 5-star, certainly bringing it on the recruiting front all the time. Daniel is asking any update on JT Mason Smith, we talked about Korey Forman, so maybe Mason Smith would be a good target. I know you mentioned JT earlier in the program.
Yeah, and I'll hit on JT real quick because we didn't go too far in depth with him. I do think Alabama has really made a strong move with him. He visited Alabama a couple years ago. I do think Alabama needs to get him back on campus, but Ohio State's been considered the heavy favorite for him for a long time, and I still think the Buckeyes are in the lead. But Alabama has just been surging over the course of the last few months with him. I think they're number 2 on his list. So it's something to watch very closely for the next few months. If he decides to hold off from making a decision anytime soon, I think Alabama is certainly going to have a chance to potentially land his commitment. So we'll keep an eye on him. Mason Smith, he was one of those other guys who ended up taking a visit over to Georgia, last weekend, with Korey Forman, a lot of other top players. But no major decisions happening from him just yet. Still planning on waiting until after the season to make a decision. He's hoping to take official visits. Alabama remains in constant communication with him. As we mentioned before, he grew up an Alabama fan, but living in Louisiana in LSU country, LSU has been considered the favorite, pretty much from the get-go. Can another school potentially pull him away? I think it's very possible. And Georgia certainly a school that he likes a lot, but so is Alabama. I see him playing in the SEC. I know Miami's very high on his list as well, but I'd be shocked if he ended up going to Miami over some of these SEC schools.
Okay. All right. We got some more super chats coming in. So thank you so much. We'll get to those in just a second. I want to take care of Nathan real quick because he had a question. Why is Bama having such a hard time getting tight ends? Last year, Alabama missed out on some great tight ends.
Yeah, I don't know. I think last year was kind of interesting because, there were really only 2 guys that, Alabama just thought so highly of in terms of, after getting a commitment from Caden Clark, because they got a commitment, very early from Caden Clark, and they really only had room for one more tight end. Well, there was 2 tight ends who were, head and shoulders above everybody else in the tight end class last year, in Eric Gilbert and Darnell Washington. Well, Alabama, pretty much focused all their energy on Eric Gilbert, and unfortunately for Alabama, they missed out on him. He ended up going to LSU. So once he ended up going to LSU, they started recruiting, heavily pursuing Darnell Washington again. Well, Darnell Washington had kind of been a priority, for some other programs, including Georgia, who he ended up signing with from day one. I mean, he was their number 1 tight end target from day one, and he ends up going there. So really just missed on those 2 guys, but this year has been a little bit more, a little trickier because we felt like Alabama certainly needed to get an elite tight end in this class. We saw some guys, end up going elsewhere that they heavily pursued, but there just hasn't been a lot of guys in terms of being in state. There's been no tight ends in the state of Alabama for the last several years. I don't know why, there's just no tight ends in Alabama. It would probably make things a lot easier for Alabama if there was, an elite tight end in this state, because they'll be able to get one. But, some of the guys that they've, recruited in this cycle, have gone gone to in-state programs. So I think that's what made things a little bit more difficult. Obviously trying to recruit Robbie Oots, who they hold in high regard. I know he's just a 3-star, but Alabama holds him in high regard. Probably likes him better than a lot of the 4-star guys who are out there. But he's also a guy who's never really taken a real visit to Alabama. Now, he visited Alabama, but that was during COVID and during the dead period, so he didn't get a chance to spend much time with the coaches. So it's just been kind of a weird year. But I think tight end wise, Alabama long term they'll be okay. They usually are, but these last few recruiting cycles have just been a little tricky. I don't think it's necessarily Alabama's ability not to land a top target, because really last year it was really they missed out on one guy that they put all their eggs in one basket on and just missed out on.
Okay, we got another super chat coming in. This is from Alex again. Thank you so much, Alex. We appreciate it. Boone, give him a shout out real quick.
Yeah, Alex, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really means a lot to us. This is a question for both of you. But do you believe that the Big Ten, the Pac-12, continue to not have a season this year that will negatively affect recruiting this season? Example, Ohio State. Go ahead, Bone.
Yeah, I don't know how much it's going to affect Ohio State, because Ohio State's, they're still pulling in top targets. I mean, you look at their 2022 recruiting class. I mean, they're getting, kids every single, just about every single day, every single week committing to them, starting to load up early in the class of 2022. So it hasn't really affected Ohio State much. Now, is it going to affect other schools, in the Big Ten? It might. And I mentioned this a few times. I think I mentioned this last week. I know I've mentioned it on a radio station that, Dejon Warren, one of the top junior college players in the country, committed to Georgia last week. Well, he was considered a heavy lean to Penn State from the get-go, and he ends up committing to Georgia instead. Now, Georgia was in the race for a long time, but I think it was a sudden commitment. I don't know if that had an impact on his decision, but it did, make me start thinking it could have had a little bit of an impact. So, we'll see what happens moving forward. But in terms of Ohio State, I just don't see them, falling off too much. They're still going to be, pulling in, top recruiting classes year in and year out.
All right. And I think so. I agree with Bone. I think Ohio State, they're doing such a great job. I think the other programs, I mean, it's kind of too early to tell because we don't know if they're even going to not play football this year. I think the Pac-12, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, especially with the pay for play, or if these players start getting some sort of sponsorship agreement. That's going to be really interesting as well. USC is always going to do their thing out in the West Coast. I mean, those guys are always going to be able to gravitate towards playing out on the West. So I think it's a little bit too early to tell. I'm more curious, to be honest, about this blanket waiver that's going to provide every prospect playing this year an extra year eligibility. Think about it just from a standpoint from the logistical side, right? Alabama's locker room, let's just take it. Let's just say it's built for 120 players. Well, you add on 20 more players. I mean, the locker room's not built for that. So I think that's going to be more interesting to track in terms of how many freshmen are on, how many guys are staying over. It's something really that we've never seen before. And I think it could cause a lot of chaos down the road. So thank you for the question. And thank you so much for the super chat, Alex. We certainly appreciate it. Brandon's back in here with another super chat. Thank you so much. Brandon's asking, so with that being said, what is Alabama's chances of winning the college football playoffs? Well, I think that, and again, we'll talk more team on Wednesday. Brandon, definitely join us. I think when you look at the team this year for Alabama, I think one of the greatest things is going to be watching Alabama perform in a 10-game conference-only schedule, first of all, because how many times have we watched Alabama and you have a couple games where you just, it's not that entertaining because they're money games, right? A New Mexico State, a Georgia Southern, but now it's 10 games. I think all eyes are going to be locked in. You saw the schedule released today, several games already on CBS, on ESPN. So Alabama's certainly going to be in the limelight. Now, can Alabama grind it out? 10 games in the SEC, add on 3 more with the SEC championship, a playoff game, a national championship game. We'll see. I think this team certainly has the talent to do so, but I think they most importantly have the depth. Now, depth is going to be hard for every single team this year because of the situation that's going on in the country. You saw just recently with Oklahoma, they lost a whole position group. So, we'll see. I think it's going to come down to who has not only the most depth, but the most quality depth. And I really like where Alabama is right now. In terms of a 1 and a 2 standpoint. But that's just something we're going to have to see. And I think you're going to see all these quarterbacks play this year. I think you're going to see a lot of new faces come on the field because they're going to have to. So I think this season, more than ever, it's going to be about depth, and that's going to lead to a college football championship. So there you go, Brandon. I hope that answered your question. We got a couple more coming in. I think there was one about a kicker. Jacob. What's up, Jacob? Why no kickers? Why? Why just why?
Well, Alabama usually likes to, sign a kicker, once about every 3 years. They signed Will Reichard, 2 years ago or last year, excuse me, and he was injured, most of last year. So he's coming back, and I think Alabama's, for the most part, you can almost get a guy, not on scholarship to come in. You can get a preferred walk-on kicker, for the most part. But I think they're looking. Next year is going to be the year that they probably end up getting a kicker on scholarship. But no kickers this year. Special teams just not a big priority in this year's class. But next year it will be.
Sarah's saying Alabama's been cursed since the 90s. I'm telling you, I heard great things about Will Reichard from Saturday's scrimmage. I heard he didn't miss, heard he looked great. So look for him to be your kicker. I know it's early and you want to see production. You're like,
I still have faith in him. I was told when he was a senior at Hoover High School that Alabama was wishing he was down in Tuscaloosa, during his senior year. So Alabama believes in this kid, and they feel like he's going to be a special player. And I think Alabama fans need to give him a chance because I think he's got a chance to really be that guy for the next couple years in Tuscaloosa to really finally get Alabama over that curse.
All right, we will. We're winding down on the show.
We said that a bunch of times before, but this is going to be the guy. I'm telling you, he's going to be the guy.
There's hope. There's hope. And by the way, everybody, just a great show tonight. Thank you to all the super chats. All the super chats go to Bone tonight. So thank you so much for supporting him and the great job that he does for us at BamaInsider.com. Really thank everyone from Randall Williams, Tony Hill, Alex. I mean, the list goes on and on. So thank you so much. I'll definitely update the super chat leaderboard and put you guys on because you guys are key contributors. If you also want to join the website, you can go to BamaInsider.com and get free 30 days. If you also want to support us here on YouTube, and you're not a super chat member, just hit the join button. You can become a member of the Touchdown Club and the Loyalty Club. See the join button at the bottom of the screen. And of course, we'll talk team tomorrow night on Wednesday. So definitely join me. We got, here's what to watch for tomorrow. You got practice. So I'll provide some more practice highlights. Thank you so much for all the thumbs up on those. You got Nick Saban talking, following the scrimmage. So you had him after the scrimmage, now a couple days after the scrimmage, which will be great to hear from him. And then we'll have our show. We'll talk some more teams. So get your team questions ready. I can't wait to hear from you guys. We'll end on this note, and I'll give it to you, Bone. Can you name 3 Alabama commitments who are most likely to flip or to go elsewhere? I mean, it's a hypothetical question. Let's put it like this. Are there any guys that could flip? I mean, I guess anything could theoretically happen, but I mean, maybe help the user out and kind of figure out who could potentially flip if there was a guy.
Well, and I've said this recently. I think with the this recruiting class and the it took really until the summer before Alabama's class really got going. If we would have seen, if there were guys who committed back in December and January, and just a lot of those guys, making early commitments, I could see more, flips happening. But the majority of Alabama's class, didn't commit until this summer. So, they had taken their time. They had taken some visits, last year, not necessarily this year, but some of them were able to fit in some junior days. But I think for the most part, all these kids are very solid with their commitments. Now, are some still being heavily pursued by other schools? Absolutely. Are some still thinking maybe I'm going to take some more trips if I can? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dallas Turner still heavily pursued, but I don't see him flipping. I think he's very solid with his commitment. Ja'Cory Brooks, Christian Leary, those are 2 wide receivers who are heavily being pursued by in-state programs. But at the same time, I think both are very solid with their commitments. And guess who has become basically wide receiver U in the country, and that's Alabama. And that's where they want to go. So for the most part, I just don't see any of these commitments flipping in this cycle. Now, that's different than how I felt in past recruiting cycles. I've always felt like there was going to be 1 or 2 flips in the end. As of right now, I just can't see anybody flipping. My feelings may change here in the next few months, but I think for the most part, every single one of these guys is very solid, very committed, and they're all in a group chat. They all talk just about every single week together, and they're all building that relationship with each other. And a lot of these guys are also going to arrive at Alabama in December, or excuse me, in January. So getting them on campus early is going to be huge as well.
A lot of continuity. A couple more, Bone, before we head out. We got a couple more. Nathan is asking you, are you going to do signings for your book? And how is that going to go down? And recently, Bone's book is now available. You can definitely check that out. I'll put a link to to where you can purchase that inside the description box. Bone, people want this book, The Road to Bama, Incredible Twists and Improbable Turns Along the Alabama Crimson Tide Recruiting Trail. Where can they pick your book up? Tell them how to get it. And I know there's people that want this book signed by the Andrew Bone.
Yeah, it's really exciting because it is my first book that I've ever written, and I was very fortunate to have Triumph Books, your sports publishing company in Chicago, reach out to me about writing this book. And fortunately, Jay Barker wrote the foreword for me. So I was very happy to have him. And 18 chapters. Each chapter tells the story of a former Alabama great, his life growing up, his journey to Alabama, and so many just different stories that intertwined. And talk to parents, coaches, even coaches from other schools that recruited him. Why? One particular player, Brody Croyle. I had the pleasure of playing with Brody in high school. Many people thought he was going to Florida State, and then he ends up not going to Florida State, signed with Alabama. Well, Mark Richt, former Georgia head coach, was the offensive coordinator at Florida State. Well, I interviewed Mark Richt and got his side of the story as to why he felt like, as to what happened, how he ended up losing Brody to Alabama. So a lot of different things like that throughout the entire book, and it was a lot of fun to write. Unfortunately, book signings, in-person book signings just aren't going to happen this year. We had scheduled to do some with Barnes and Noble, but they basically had to cancel them because of COVID. There may be something later in the year, but if you do purchase a book, you can go on Amazon, you can go on Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, you can go on Triumph Books, all those sites. You can go ahead and order on pre-sale. If you buy one, if you message me, mail it to me, I'll sign it, send it back to you. That's kind of the best avenue, I guess, to go through right now. But if you mail it to me, I'll be more than happy to sign it and send it back to you.
Okay. So there you go. And we'll put the link to where you can purchase Bones' book right in the description box, as we always do. All right, we'll end on this one. Rivals list 11 5- and 4-star players from the state of Alabama in 2021. If Kool-Aid and Jeremiah Williams commit to Auburn, Auburn will have 4 of the top 5, and Tennessee 3 of the top 11. Thoughts on our recruiting in state this year? You already kind of touched on it a little bit, but it looks like we got a new subscriber, so let's help Braden out.
Yeah, Braden, I think, recruiting the state of Alabama is always important, but I think, if Alabama can get the guys that they really want, and, Alabama's probably going to miss out on, in my opinion, they're going to miss out on Kool-Aid. There's some guys who are committed to Auburn, because some committed to Tennessee that, Alabama just really didn't pursue. So it's really not that important. I always think it is important to win the state, but in the grand scheme of things, if they're pulling in, a top, the number 1 player from Texas, or the number 1 player from Georgia, or wherever it may be, they're still getting elite prospects year in and year out, and they're doing an extremely good job, and they're going to finish with a top 3 recruiting class. There's no doubt about it. Obviously, landing top players in the state is important, but in this recruiting cycle, as long as they can hit key positions of need, even if they're from out of state, I think they'll be just fine.
All right, good stuff. So thank you so much, Braden, for the question for Andrew. And thank you so much to everybody who joined us, not only tonight, but provided the super chats. Remember, all super chats go back to Andrew Bones tonight on his recruiting show. Catch me tomorrow night, Wednesday, as we talk team. Bones, you have fun tonight? I mean, this was a great show.
Great show. Great, great atmosphere. It was a, awesome night with super chats. So thank all you guys so much. It means a lot. Like Kyle said, it's tips to me. So that means the world to me. And thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see you on BamaInsider.com.
Definitely. You can sign up for that free 30-day trial, which is simply Roll Tide at checkout. Catch me tomorrow, Wednesday night. Check out the practice highlights that I just posted from Alabama. Bryce Young back, Ali Cajo back. Great news for Alabama as they continue to march forward. Tomorrow will be their 10th practice. You'll also get Nick Saban press conference right here on BamaInsider.com. Hit the thumbs up button, and thank you very much for all the super chats, and thank you very much for joining us. Catch you guys soon, and see you back at BamaInsider.com. Good night, everyone.